Welcome to Morbid Outdoors, the podcast that ventures deep into the shadows of the wild. Here, we unravel the mysteries of missing persons, explore spine chilling legends, and share the most morbid stories that nature has to offer. From the depths of the dense forests to the highest mountain peaks, we'll uncover the secrets that lie hidden in the great outdoors. Join us as we navigate the eerie, the unexplained, and the terrifying. So if you dare, grab your gear and let's embark on a journey into the unknown. This is Morbid Outdoors. Hello, everyone. My name is Elise, and this is your last bonus episode. It's the road trip series. I'm not really calling it anything exactly like specific, but today I am taking my mom to one of my favorite places in the entire state of New Mexico, and that is the Santa Fe National Forest, Jemez Mountains area, and Valles Caldera National Preserve. Now, I first visited this place in 2019, no, 2018, just driving through, and it was beautiful. I did not get to hike in the area as it was not on my road trip back then, but I came back when I moved to New Mexico in 2020, and oh my gosh, if you think New Mexico is all desert and cacti and dirt, you are so wrong. New Mexico is very vibrant, it's extremely green, and it's beautiful. And surprisingly, there's a lot of water. Like Santa Fe and up, northern New Mexico is beautiful. I've gone whitewater rafting in the Rio Grande. I've been hiking. There's fly fishing in the area I'm going to tell you about today. I love the Valles Caldera National Preserve. And in fact, a couple years ago, I took my friend Ashley on a road trip in New Mexico. She had some misconceptions about New Mexico. She thought she liked green chilies, and I'm like, "Oh no, Ashley, these are like New Mexican green chilies. They're actually spicy." And she didn't listen, and she got them on one of her meals, and she was like, "Oh my God, you're so right. They're so spicy." And then she thought that New Mexico was just gonna be desert and nothing great, and oh, it blew her mind. She actually really, really liked New Mexico and wants to go back. I took her to this area. There's streams everywhere full of fish and wide open green plains, and I've seen elk herds and foxes and coyotes, and it's just a beautiful, very lush place in the state. So if you go to New Mexico, I highly suggest going to the Valles Caldera National Preserve. It is beautiful. It is just otherworldly, in my opinion. And there's wildflowers in June. It's just really, really nice. So let's get into today's bonus episode. Like I said, Valles Caldera is my favorite part of New Mexico. It has it all: picturesque streams, green fields, and mountains galore. It's within the Santa Fe National Forest slash Jemez National Forest, and it is abundant with wildlife, including black bears. And in 2016, it was the home to a mauling during a marathon. This case isn't super popular. I only know about it because I heard it on another podcast, and I've visited the Valles Caldera like dozens of times. And so this isn't something that they like talk about if you go visit, but you are supposed to be wildlife aware and bear aware because this is like backcountry. Like there's one road and that's it. It's beautiful, it's remote. In fact, today when my mom and I are heading out there, I actually scored us backcountry permits, which they only give out like 30 a day in the summer. And so I scored us some backcountry permits and I'm gonna take her into the backcountry. She's never been. I think it's lovely. If I did fly fishing, this would be the place to fish. Seriously, if you want to follow along and see all my pictures from New Mexico, follow me on Instagram. New Mexico is great. You should make it your next vacation destination. It's amazing. So, we're gonna start out with a land acknowledgement first. We acknowledge that the land we're discussing today, Valles Caldera National Preserve, exists on the ancestral and traditional homelands of many indigenous peoples who have lived in and stewarded this region for generations. This includes the Pueblo of Jemez, Santa Clara Pueblo, Pueblo of Zia, and other Pueblo communities, as well as the Navajo Nation, Ute tribe, and Apache tribe. For thousands of years, this land has been a place of very deep cultural, spiritual, and ecological significance, used for hunting, gathering, ceremony, and connection. The caldera itself is not just a landscape, but it's a living sacred space woven into to the traditions and histories of these communities. We recognize the enduring relationship that Indigenous peoples have with this land, and we honor their stewardship, resilience, and continued presence. As we explore the stories of this place, we do so with respect for its original caretakers, past, present, and future. Unfortunately, just like most of the other amazing places we discuss on Morbid Outdoors, the Valles Caldera does have negative reviews. Someone said, lame unless you want to fish or see a stupid cabin. Well, that's because you probably only went to the parking lot and that's it. So the next one says, "We were disappointed with our hiking here. There wasn't much to see. We'd heard there were a lot of animals, but maybe we were there at the wrong time or the wrong season. Bandelier was so much more impressive." So this person maybe did go at the wrong time or didn't do enough in the Valles Caldera. There's a lot to do. And Bandelier is a local national monument that's not too far away. It's really amazing. I highly suggest you go there. I've been a couple times. It's beautiful. There's old Pueblo ruins and a lot of ladders to climb. And I'm scared of heights, so I've only done the super, super tall ladders once or twice. But it's beautiful. So if you also go to New Mexico, Bandelier is really cool. Now, the next review touches on something that we are going to be discussing today. This review says, "Why allow a marathon on a preserve? You killed a mother bear, you morons. You have a duty to protect the animals on the land. There are those who protect nature and those who kill and neglect nature. You are the latter." So, yes, today we are talking about a bear mauling on during a marathon. Um, but I wanna give a little bit of background about the caldera. So it's a 13.7-mile wide or 22-kilometer wide volcanic caldera in the Jemez Mountains of northern New Mexico. There are hot springs, streams, natural gas seeps, and volcanic domes that dot the entire caldera landscape. And yes, there are hot springs nearby and they're free. You can hike to them and go soak. Amazing, clothing optional, beautiful, beautiful views from those hot springs. The highest point in the caldera is Redondo Peak, and it's 11,254 feet tall or 3,430 meters. Now, there are grass valleys all over, and the largest is called Valle Grande. And this is the only one that's accessible by a paved road. In 1975, Valles Caldera was designated as a National Natural Landmark by the National Park Service, with much of the caldera being within the Valles Caldera National Preserve, which is a unit of the National Park System. Use of the Valles Caldera dates back to prehistoric times. There have been spear points dating back to 11,000 years ago that have been discovered in this area. Several indigenous tribes frequented the caldera for hunting, prolific game, and gathering obsidian that is common in this area. Now, if you don't know what obsidian is, it's technically a kind of glass, but it's like a rock that they would nap to make arrowheads. Obsidian from the caldera was traded by tribes across much of the Southwest. Eventually, the Spanish and later Mexican settlers, along with Navajo and other tribes, came to the caldera seasonally for grazing livestock. This often resulted in periodic clashes and raids between tribes and cultures. Later, as the United States acquired New Mexico as part of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848, the caldera became a backdrop for the Indian Wars with the US Army. Around the same time, the caldera and its forest began to be used commercially for ranching and logging. Now, the Valles Caldera Preservation Act of 2000 was signed by President Bill Clinton on July 25th, 2000, and this actually created this as a national preserve. As some sites of the Baca Ranch, which is the certain area in this caldera, they are actually sacred and of cultural significance to the indigenous people of the area. 5,000 acres or 20 square kilometers of the purchase were given to the Santa Clara Pueblo, which borders the property to the northeast. These include the headwaters of the Santa Clara Creek, which is sacred to the Pueblo. On the southwest corner of the land, 300 acres or 1.2 square kilometers were to be ceded to Bandelier National Monument. So that's how close Bandelier National Monument is. It's extremely close. You could easily hit up both in one day. Now we're getting into our fun facts time. So I find this really cool. NASA used the caldera in October to November 1964 and again in September 1966 to geologically train the Apollo astronauts in recognizing volcanic features such as ash flow tuffs, pumice air falls, and rhyolite domes. Notable geologist instructors included Roy Bailey. So NASA has trained here. This is how cool this place is. And again, I'm on a road trip. I love to go by places that have been like set locations for TV shows and movies because I'm a huge nerd. New Mexico is a huge industry. There's a huge industry there for Hollywood. Um, and Valles Caldera has provided several filming locations, most for films in the Western genre. So I talked about some of these on Wednesday's episode for Ghost Ranch, but Valles Caldera is also very famous for filming. So some of these locations include exterior sets, such as the weathered ranch house that can be seen from the highway in Valle Grande, and a small town. So some of these movies include 1971's Shootout, Peter Lundy and the Medicine Hat Stallion, The Gambler, Troublemakers, Buffalo Girls, The Last Stand at Sabre River, The Missing, Seraphim Falls, Kites, which was a Hindi or Indian film, The Lone Ranger, and then my personal favorite, from 2012 to 2017, it served as the set for Longmire. If you've ever seen Longmire, this his cabin is there, his home, the little cabin that you're on the porch and you see this vast land, and he drives down this dirt road and there's, like, elk, that is the Valles Caldera, that is Valle Grande. So Longmire's cabin is actually technically in the back country in the Valles Caldera, and, it's all legit, and that is New Mexico. It's based I know, like, Longmire's based in, I think, Wyoming? I can't remember, it's been a long time since I've seen it, but it's actually in that all is all filmed in New Mexico. So, if you've ever seen that, that's where I'm talking about. So, let's talk about our case. This takes place in 2016 and 53-year-old Karen Williams had been running since her 20s. She'd been competing in triathlon since 1984 and completed her first 50K race in 2012, which was the same year that she turned 50 years old. So she's a badass. She loves to run and she's pretty good at it. Now, she eventually got her husband into running and they entered the June 2016 Valles Caldera Marathon. Now, this marathon is a combination of trail and dirt road through tall pines. And during this marathon, you're running at 8,000 feet in like cold temperatures. So it's definitely not for everyone. There were only about 40 competitors that year, and a lot of them stopped at the halfway point because it is challenging to run that long at a very high altitude. So, 6 hours in, 2 or 3 miles from the finish line, Karen was actually running alone at this time. She just crossed a creek and was tackling a small hill surrounded by pine trees when she came over the crest, and she's 23.4 miles into this race, okay? And she was 30th place out of about 50 participants, and she heard a noise, but unfortunately, it was too late. At first, what she saw, she thought it was a chow chow dog, but as she got closer, she realized that it was a black bear. She felt a jolt of fear and then turned towards it, like trying to raise her arms and make herself as big as she could, and she was shouting no, but the bear kept charging her. And over its shoulder, she spotted a cub and she thought, oh shit, I'm in trouble now. Because she knows that even though it's a black bear, They can still be very protective about their cubs. It charged her, and suddenly she was on her back being raked by the bear's claws. The bear bit her on both arms, and when Karen screamed in pain, the bear gave her a left hook to her face. Fighting back wasn't an option here. Typically, the phrase is, "If it's black, fight back. If it's brown, lie down." But this black bear was not having it. So Karen rolled over onto her belly, and the bear bit her neck and started shaking Karen through her backpack. So she's I mean, this is terrifying. You're running, your adrenaline's already pretty high when you're running, and then you suddenly see a bear, it's charging you, and it starts attacking you. This would have been so, so terrifying. So she was trying to roll over onto her back so that the bear would kinda come more into contact with her backpack instead of her skin, obviously. The right side of Karen's face was bloody, and she could feel something rubbing against her cheek. Initially, she feared that the bear had knocked her eye out of socket, so she took her hand and she reached up to check, and she was wondering if she could even push her eye back into her skull. That's, like, just so disturbing. But to her great relief, it turned out that all she felt was her dangling broken sunglasses. The bear gave Karen a final whack on her backpack and retreated, making a huffy noise. But throughout the attack, which lasted maybe a minute, the bear hadn't growled once, so if anything, Karen thought that the bear had seemed nervous. Karen could also hear the squalling of two cubs, the one she'd seen and another one which she then realized was at the top of a nearby tree. So Karen actually in this attack, towards the end of the attack, she played dead, which is what you're supposed to do with grizzlies, but it worked in this situation for her. She watched as the bear tried to get the cub down out of the tree, and the bear was still glancing back at Karen while she was trying to get to her cubs. So this was Karen was just because the bear wasn't actively attacking her, this was not over just yet. Karen knew that she needed to keep playing dead until the bears were out of sight. So she waited another 10 minutes once she could no longer hear them. Now, Karen's job, she was an ER and ICU nurse for 30 years, so she knew how important it was for her to get medical help in the next 30 minutes. She tried to get up, but it left her dizzy and nauseated. I can't imagine. And she didn't have a cell phone because there's really no cell service in this area at all. So all Karen could do was lie on the ground and wait for someone to find her. It turned out that there were only two runners behind her. So someone arrived within a half hour, a 75-year-old man named Ken. He asked Karen if she fell, and then he reacted with shock when Karen turned towards him. Now, behind Ken was a runner named Andrea. So Ken and Andrea ran in the two opposite directions towards the two nearest aid stations. Another half hour after that, Karen was being strapped into a backboard to be helicoptered out to the trauma center in Albuquerque, which was 80 miles away. Now, fortunately, Karen didn't have any broken bones and her neck wound was minimal, but her left biceps were torn, and the blow to Karen's face had fractured her right eye socket, torn the eyelid, and damaged her tear duct. So most of the trauma was to her face and head. And honestly, this bear attack could have been much, much worse. I mean, this bear could have killed her. So she also lost a strip of forehead skin, including much of her right eyebrow. And when the New Mexico Department of Game and Fish, they'd been combing the scene for evidence, they actually called Karen to say that they found her eyebrow and they asked her if she wanted doctors to try to reattach it. And she said that she thought about where it had been. She thanked them and declined. So she lost some of her right eyebrow, could have had it sewn back on, but opted not to. And honestly, they were doing a really good job for combing the scene if they found part of her eyebrow. I can't even imagine finding that out there. Now, the Valles Caldera Marathon race director Chris Kern said, quote, "We had 150 people cross that point in the preceding hours. Bears will usually stay away from a place with that much traffic. This is the 10th year of the race, and I've been running here for 20 years. I've only seen two bears in that time." So unfortunately, this was just like wrong place, wrong time. Karen just happened to accidentally surprise this bear and it defended its babies. And that's just how it was. And Karen was smart to stop fighting and just lay down. I'm not sure if she knew that was going to work, but it did. Now, unfortunately, New Mexico state law mandates that a bear that attacks a human must be euthanized. So the New Mexico Department of Game and Fish tracked the bear using a location collar and killed it that night. It was then tested for rabies and it tested negative for rabies. Karen did not want the bear to be killed. She said the game and fish guys did what they had to do. She believes that the law is in place as an easier alternative to forcing people to pay upwards of $1,000 for rabies shots, which she says most New Mexico residents can't afford and insurance won't cover. She fought to get that law changed later on, but to no avail. All of her fighting did not help change that law. Now, if you're wondering about the cubs, they were captured and looked after until they were big enough to be released back into the wild. So, like the race director said, that was the 10th year of the race, and nothing like this had ever happened in the past 10 years. Now, I did find an article that a year later, the race was approved again, but I think due to heavy scrutiny and criticism, they did not have the race in 2017. They had made plans for it to be, like, shorter, and then they had made plans for, like, first aid people at every check I mean, it was gonna be like they were preparing for a bear attack to happen every, like, mile or I only found one article and it says a year after the attack, approval for race in Valles Caldera draws criticism. So it says that the US National Park Service has approved a race through part of the Valles Caldera National Preserve this month, which was in May 2017. Yes, May 2017. The Public Employees for Environmental Responsibility, which is a national group made up of state and federal professional government workers, criticized Park Service for permitting the event at the time when bears and their newborns are emerging from hibernation, which, yes, that is a huge risk. So, someone said his name was Jeff Roosh, and he's the group's executive director, and he made the bold statement. How many more people need to be mauled for these clueless officials to conclude this is a bad idea? But the organizer and the Jemez Mountain Trail runs on May 20th, and the National Park Service said that the risk of wildlife and human encounters is small and that the potential for encounters shouldn't prevent recreation in the Valles Caldera. So, of course, human wildlife conflict can never fully be eliminated, but I think that maybe they should have planned things differently. So, basically, they were saying, "We're gonna go forward with this, but for the first time since the race began in 2006, an emergency medical technician will be at first aid stations and will text alert, runners if wild animals are present." Now, I don't know how they would do that when you can't always see or hear wild animals in the wild, but that was their plan. So they were like, "We're gonna have added safety precautions, and we're still gonna do this, and it's gonna be great." But, I couldn't find that they ever went through with this. So 2017, they were supposed to have the race. I don't think it ever went through because I could not find any more news articles about it, and this was the last one. So I think because of public scrutiny and criticism, they probably canceled it, but I'm not 100% sure. I do want to throw in some information from Casey Anderson, who is the author of the story of Brutus, My Life with Brutus the Bear and the Grizzlies of North America. This man is an American wildlife naturalist and photographer, and he said, "Bears are super emotional and super intelligent. More often than not, the bear will run away from you. If a black bear actually attacks, it's for one of two reasons. They think you are a threat or a food source. 99% of the time, the bear is looking at you as a threat, so fighting back will create more of a problem. If you do startle a bear, Casey suggests stopping forward movement, avoiding eye contact, and backing away slowly. If the bear charges in an attempt to eliminate you as a threat, he says hold your posture in a non defensive way and stay calm. Screaming is one of the main reasons people get facial and neck wounds because the bear wants you to stop and to be quiet. So he's basically saying that because Karen was screaming, that is why the bear was likely going for her face and neck because it was trying to shut her up. So, really, I mean, how many other people besides Karen Williams can say she survived a bear mauling while she was running a race? 23 miles in, she got mauled by a black bear and survived with pretty minor injuries. So she actually did like it was like a follow-up, I think, a year ago. She reflected on her experience, and much of this episode comes from that article from The Guardian. So I hope that my mom and I are having fun today. I hope that I've inspired you to visit New Mexico if you haven't. If you need any suggestions, I am totally okay with emails or DMs. I lived in New Mexico for a while and I visit every year and I love it. I love it. So if you ever want suggestions, I'm your girl. As always, recreate responsibly and remember, sometimes the great outdoors aren't always great. Thanks for listening to Morbid Outdoors. If you're enjoying what you're hearing, make sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform. It's free, easy, and it helps us out immensely. When you subscribe, you get updates on our latest episodes, and it also boosts our visibility, making it easier for other curious souls to find us. Another great way to support Morbid Outdoors is by leaving us a review. Whether you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen, a quick review helps us know what you love about the show. You can also join us on Patreon for early and ad-free content. Find us on Instagram and Facebook at Morbid Outdoors Podcast. You can email us case suggestions and your campfire stories at morbidoutdoorspodcast@gmail.com. Thanks so much for the support, and I'll see you next time.